Hello and a very warm welcome to this webinar, Making Change Happen at Midlife. I'm Lizzie Paish, Life Transformation Coach to women at midlife, and I'm delighted that you found your way here. So the reason I've created this video and the reason that I do the work that I do is because it's so common at midlife to feel restless and dissatisfied. But so many women I speak to don't realise that that's the case, and they feel like they're the only one. But that's absolutely not the case. It's so common for us to feel that it's time for something new before it's too late. We've still got several decades of life to enjoy, and we want to choose to spend them well, to express something of who we really are. We just don't want to look back and feel, I was never really true to myself. But perhaps, like so many women I speak to, you've tried lots and lots of different ways to change, and you've learned all sorts of stuff that makes perfect sense, but somehow you can't actually put it into action. You don't seem to be able to be any different. Well, what this webinar is all about is explaining why it is that you might be struggling to change things in life, even though you feel that you know a whole load of stuff about how your thinking works and what you're like. There are just widespread and really innocent misunderstandings that keep us stuck because we don't really understand how our minds work. And there's something really counterintuitive about change, which you can absolutely see is what keeps us stuck and actually gets in our way. So I'll be exploring that a bit later on. So why should you stay for this class? Well, this is for you if you're feeling restless and dissatisfied. Maybe you've got an empty nest, or you're single, lonely, or your relationship isn't what it was. Maybe you're bored or worn out, and you desperately want to find a new direction for your life. But you just don't know what it could be, or you know, but you just can't seem to make it happen. Or maybe you dream of making a contribution to the world and feeling a sense of fulfillment that just currently isn't yours. Maybe you feel stuck meeting other people's needs, and your needs are kind of always pushed to the bottom of the pile. Or you feel guilty when you consider focusing on you. I meet a lot of women who are consumed by this guilt every time they kind of think of doing something for themselves. Or perhaps you just don't know how you can possibly make changes in your life that you want to make. So I'm going to show you how you can get started making those changes today and what's getting in the way. So the real problem that so many of us have is that we don't really know what we've got going for us. You don't know what you've really got going for you. And probably even as I say that, you might be cringing inwardly and going, well, it's only little old me. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's so hard to see beyond what we currently think is possible. We can only see the limits of what we can see, and we believe that that's all there is, and that's not true either. And perhaps you have this misunderstanding about how change happens, and so you've been going at it this same way for your whole life and it just doesn't seem to be getting you anywhere. Well, let me show you something different. So as a result of what we're talking about today, I expect that you will get in touch with what's really important to you for this next stage of life. And you'll know how you can actually make change happen in your life. You'll get this glimpse of new ways forward that were invisible to you before. And you'll see that there's a different way from all the other things that you've tried before. And that's not to say that all those other things haven't been useful and important and brought you to where you are now. And this is the next step, so that you can start creating a life that you can really get excited about. So this webinar is for you if you secretly know, or maybe not even secretly, that you hold the keys to your own transformation and you're ready to get started and you just haven't really known how up till now. So just a quick bit about me. I'm a life transformation coach, and I don't use that term lightly because I really see people's lives changing, and it's a really wonderful and inspiring thing to see. I've been running this business of my own for several years, supporting people, women and men and young people, to live more fulfilling and less anxious lives, filled with possibility, the possibility that I see all around me and all around you. I run events like retreats and the trek that you saw in that first photo in the UK and abroad. And I just feel less stressed and I'm having more fun in life than ever before. I feel creative and inspired. I feel like I'm living this much more expansive life that just didn't look possible before. But it hasn't always been that way. So 5 years ago, I was a teacher and school leader, and I was just stuck in this job that no longer fulfilled me. But I had no idea what else I could do. It seemed as if teaching was all I knew. I had that kind of limited perspective, could see those limited possibilities that I was talking about earlier. But I was just becoming really miserable and just fed up with all the tedious admin tasks that seemed pointless, and I was getting fractious and grumpy with the children. It just didn't feel like where I needed to be anymore. So I kind of worked out that I had two choices, either to continue to struggle and to moan my way towards retirement, or to figure out another way. And obviously that's what I decided to do. So I started a transition business, which was as a freelance teacher, teaching workshops in other schools, and that business is still growing and flourishing. But most significantly, I got support with my mindset, and I started to learn something different about how my mind and the world worked. And as I started to see the world differently, I felt able to take the plunge and invest in myself to see that possibility, and I trained as a coach. And I realised that I was capable of so much more than I'd realised, with this new excitement and enthusiasm for life. And of course, what I realised then is that that's possible for all of us. That's possible for you too. You're capable of so much more than you realise. And that excitement and enthusiasm is available to you too. So I just want to show you how you can do the same and get so much more out of life if you're currently feeling stuck. So there are just some key things that I discovered that I know now that have made a huge difference to my life. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. These key realizations. And I call them realizations because knowing something intellectually just isn't enough. It's interesting, it can be helpful to a certain extent, but I wonder if you've experienced this for yourself, that actually it doesn't lead to lasting change, to deep change, to you actually living a different kind of life, the life that you dream of. And it's so easy just to slip back into our old ways or to continue to feel stuck. But guiding people to actually see something for themselves is the work that I do with my clients, and that's what I'm hoping to show you today. So the first realization that I want to point you to is that you are not a victim of circumstance. You create your own experience. If you don't realize this, then feeling like a victim of circumstance, you feel helpless, and you have to wait for circumstances to change for you to be able to change, and you remain stuck. But it's not true that we're a victim of circumstances. Our thinking is independent of circumstances, and therefore our experience, our feelings, are not tied to the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Although it often looks as if you can only behave one way given your circumstances, and people quite often say to me, well, what else could I do? That's just not true, because you can actually find plenty of examples of other people behaving differently given those same circumstances. Or you can notice ways or times that you've behaved differently, reacted differently, felt differently in the same circumstances. I'm sure you can find examples of that in your own life. Realizing that you're not a victim of circumstances moves you from this limitation mode of, oh, something else has got to change, somebody or something has got to happen before I can enjoy life, before life can get better for me. It moves you from that into possibility mode. So given these circumstances, what am I going to do? What could I create? What could I do differently? It's just so much more vibrant and exciting place to be. And it allows you to access your inner resources and come up with creative solutions and just have this more receptive mindset that leads to change. So an example of this was a client of mine, Jan, who had had mental health problems all her life, and she knew the mental health system inside out. She wanted to create something new in her life, but she had this limitation mindset. She felt like she was a victim of circumstances. She'd say, oh, you don't understand, I'm this, that and the other, my brain is different, I need all this different support. And it just really looked to her as if the circumstances made it impossible for life to be any different. But I knew that wasn't true. And this is one of the things about the work that I do with my clients, is that you will never persuade me that there isn't a world of possibility out there for you. You will never persuade me that the limitations that you see are real. You will never persuade me that who you think you are is real, because I know that that's not true. After our work together, Jan now finds herself in a job that she loves. She's removed herself from mental health services altogether, and she's experiencing freedom and more happiness than she has for many, many years. All from letting go of that belief that she was a victim of circumstances. So let's take a look at realization 2. This is that the stories that you repeatedly tell yourself are not true. You know the ones, the stories that you tell yourself about yourself, but also the stories that you tell yourself about what's expected, about who you ought to be, about what the world is like, about how the world works, about what's important and necessary. None of these are the truth. Until you realize this, whilst you believe that these stories are real, then you have to act as if they're real. They're invisible to you, so you just behave totally as if that's the only way it can be. And that's why you keep repeating the same behavior, when we don't realize that these things are stories. Because our version of the world is entirely our own. It's made up inside of our heads. Some stories are closer to reality or more helpful and work better for us than others, but they're all just our version of the world. They're not objective reality. Once you start noticing your stories, you can start noticing that other people have alternatives to them, and you might consider what alternatives there are to your stories that might serve you better. But you don't even need to change your stories, because what really matters is just seeing through them and realizing that you're not stuck, that you don't have to continue to behave as if they're true. Stories are multi-layered and they link into other people's stories, and you're playing a role in other people's stories too. But the more able you are to spot them, and spot them quickly, then you can decide whether you want to act on them or not. You're not blind to them anymore. And you can find yourself discovering new stories and new ways of looking at the same situation that actually serve you much better. So this reminds me of this client of mine, Jenny, who had this story of, my partner is a narcissist. He always has to have things his own way. And, he seemed as if he was entirely selfish and uncaring. And for a while that story looked real to me as well. She told me that he always chose what they watched on TV. He was the one who decided what they'd do each day. His family took priority over hers. He gave her such a hard time about her driving that she'd sold her car and didn't drive anymore. And she was totally caught up in this story. But when she started to realize that this was something that she made up, that she was so busy telling herself this story that she was really stuck in it, things started to change. She started to realize that her own behavior from this belief that it was true had encouraged and maybe even caused some of his habits. And she very quickly turned things around in the space of a couple of weeks. And then within a month, I just saw like her being her own person again, living her own life, doing her own thing. And her partner was perfectly happy. In fact, he was more relaxed and at ease with her, and she'd felt that she just couldn't possibly do anything different. He'd react so badly to that. But of course, that wasn't the case. She'd made that bit up too. So amazing when we start to see these stories, the extent of them, and let go of them, how quickly and dramatically things can change. So that brings us on to realization 3, that currently you have no idea who you really are. Who you think you are is so limited. We've created this thought-created persona, this made-up version of ourselves, and then we live within its limitations. You don't have to do that anymore, because that idea of who you are is just made up. Until you realize this, everything looks like hard work, and some things even look impossible. There seem to be only certain avenues open to you, and you mistake those limits of what looks possible for what actually is possible for you. Once you know that that version of you is made up, then we can start exploring our full potential and trying out new things and creating new experiences, whatever the result turns out to be, without telling ourselves that we can't, that it's not possible for us. And this is what happened to me when I took this trek to Nepal, that it seemed like that was something impossible. It was something that I'd always dreamed of doing, but the thought of actually taking a group of other people and making that work just looked really difficult, until I realised that I'd just made that up, that all those limitations I'd put on myself were just made up by me. And then I started to take steps towards this, and there were times when it looked as if it might not happen. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. Sometimes other people were a bit negative about it, and who do you think you are doing that, or what makes you think that there'll be people who actually want to go on a trek in Nepal with someone they've never met before. But I just kept taking steps forward. I just didn't listen to the voices of others and the voices in my head that told me that it wasn't something that I could do. And there we were at the top of a mountain in Nepal. That was an amazing experience for me and for all those people who joined us. So realization 4 is that self-criticism and trying so hard to be different are actually what's getting in the way of change. Now, this is counterintuitive, and this is what might just make the difference between all the things that you've done up to now and this different way of approaching change. Because I wouldn't be surprised if you've tried very hard to change, to be different. And part of that incorporates this self-criticism of, I'm not enough as I am at the moment. Things aren't right. I need to be different. I need to know more. I need to be a different kind of person. I need to develop myself into something else. And that self-criticism that is such a constant companion for so many women that I speak to is not helping us, is not creating a better person, is not helping us to move forward. It's actually the one thing that is keeping us really stuck and keeping us blind to what we already have going for us, what's here, right here and now, who we really are. And it just seems like something that if we don't keep trying to change, if we don't keep telling ourselves that we're not how we should be yet, How are we ever going to change? But do you know what? It just doesn't work that way. We tell ourselves that we need to have more experience, more money, more knowledge, be more enlightened even, apply the stuff that I've learned, all of this self-critical voice. But what if it's that constant self-criticism that's keeping you stuck? If you want to have everything 100% secure, confirmed, direction totally clear, knowing exactly who you are and that you've got everything nailed down, that's what keeps you stuck. And the chances are you'll never get started because you'll always be waiting for something more before you can get moving. Because the truth is that we're creating our life one step at a time. This is it. There's nowhere that we're trying to get to. We're all doing the best we can given what we see and understand right now. And in the adventure that is life, you can stumble across the next step once you're moving. But all we have is right now. This is our life. And the more time we spend thinking there's somewhere else to get to, the more life is just passing us by and we're not noticing the richness that's actually in front of us right now. So perhaps the reason that you're still stuck despite everything you've learnt is that you've always thought that there's more to learn. You're waiting to feel ready. What if you just stopped waiting and started really living your life? Because the truth is, you have everything you need right now. You have access to a source of wisdom and inspiration, a connection to life that has always been there, that is always available to you. And that's all you need in every moment. If you're waiting for the right feeling, that will keep us waiting forever, because our feelings don't reflect what we know or how ready we are. They simply reflect our thinking, what we're thinking right now. So if we keep thinking we're not ready, then we will never feel ready. So let's take a look at those 4 realizations that I've explored in some detail there. So the first is that you are not a victim of circumstances. You create your own experience. The stories that you repeatedly tell yourself are just not true. You have no idea who you really are, and who you think you are is so limited. And self-criticism and trying so hard to be different are actually what's getting in the way of change. Realization beats information and intellectual understanding every time. A deep realization of those things is what will change your life. Realization comes from learning how our minds really work, that what we've been taught about how our minds work is actually wrong. And I'm always pointing towards the truth of how our experience is created and who we really are, because seeing that for yourself will change your life. So I teach my clients how to convert that intellectual understanding of everything they've learned so far into a deep realization that results in real transformation in life. So I very much hope that you have heard something useful here and that what I've been talking about has resonated with you. And if that's the case, I would love to invite you to continue this journey of exploration with me and to allow me to guide you to some of these deeper realizations that make so much difference in our lives. My course, Making Change Happen at Midlife, is designed to guide you to those life-changing realizations, the realization of who you really are, what's possible for you, and how to thrive whatever your circumstances. How you can see through some of those stories that are keeping you stuck, and the futility of that self-criticism that I was mentioning. So please don't stay stuck any longer. If you've tried getting unstuck before but find that you just fall back into old habits and ways of thinking, or you've reached that point where you just know something needs to change and you're willing to hear something new and consider that everything you've thought about yourself could be wrong, then I really hope that you'll join me for Making Change Happen at Midlife. It's a very affordable online program which you can get started on straight away. It'll help you to start taking action when you've previously felt stuck, and to engage fully and joyfully with every day, whether the circumstances are perfect or not, and to get a new perspective on what you've got going for you and how to create something new in your life, whether that's in your personal life, your business, job, relationship, whatever it is. It'll help you to experience greater confidence and less fearful thinking, and escape the debilitating worry of what others think of you, and to discover your second curve, the direction you'd love to take for this next stage of life, so that you can be free of that incessant self-critical voice that trips you up at every turn. So Making Change Happen is a series of video lessons which are designed to help you to get reflective and to guide you to those realizations, and then reflection activities which help you to gain insight into your own life. Within this course, you'll also get access to another course of mine, Confidence, Direction, Action, which helps you to feel more confident, know where you're headed in life, and take action towards that next exciting stage of life. There's the full materials of Making Change Happen at Midlife, and then there are 2 other bonus trainings. The Business Confidence Programme, which is for you if you are starting a business and struggling to gain the confidence that you really need to get visible and to put yourself and your business out there. And also the Second Curve training, which is all about making something new, creating something new for this next stage of life. And actually there's a third bonus that I haven't put on there, which is the skills assessment tool and training, which is a way of assessing what you've got going for you practically if you're looking to change career or find a new job direction at this stage of life. So there are actually those 3 bonus trainings. And all of that I've put together for just £37 because I want to make this easily accessible to as many women as possible. Because what I've seen from the perspective of my one-to-one coaching practice is that so many women just don't feel ready for one-to-one coaching, or don't have the confidence to step into that, or don't feel that they can give themselves permission to invest in themselves in the way that perhaps they really deserve. And this course, Making Change Happen, is a really good starting point to help you to see something new about yourself, about your life, and about what's possible. And of course, I can offer it at this price because there are some women who will go on and join me for other programs and for my one-to-one coaching. And I will invite you to do the same, but there will be absolutely no pressure to do so. So please don't worry about that. If the only work that you do with me is to take this course, Making Change Happen at Midlife, that can be transformational in itself. So if you're looking for something new in your life, a way to shift your perspective and learn something dramatically new that can change your life, I very much hope that you'll join this program. So just a reminder then, there's a series of video lessons. There are over 20 videos in total to watch there, and reflection activities to help you to gain your own insights. There are the materials for Confidence, Direction, Action, and Making Change Happen at Midlife, and then those bonuses of the Business Confidence Programme and the Second Curve training, and of course the skills assessment tool. So if that sounds interesting, then please take a look, click through on the button below, and for just £37 you can get started straight away on this life-changing programme and start watching those videos and taking part in the activities. I very much hope that you'll join me.